Some voices hit the charts, others hit your soul. Mine shouted like thunder. Steve Perry's, his soared. Arguably the greatest male rock vocalist of all time. And tonight, I'm not here to sing. I'm here to tell you the story of the man whose voice never needed an encore. Born Stephen Ray Perry on January 22, 1949 in Hanford, California. He was an only child raised by Portuguese-American parents with roots in the Azores. His father, Raymond Pereira, later Perry, was a part-time singer and radio station owner. The name changed to make it easier in America. Steve's parents divorced when he was just 7. He went with his mother, Mary Quaresma, and moved in with her parents. His bond with her was powerful, life-defining. On his 12th birthday, she gave him a pendant shaped like a musical 8th note. He still wears it today. And maybe, just maybe, that gift predicted the destiny ahead. It was in the passenger seat of a car, aged 12, when he heard Cupid by Sam Cooke. That moment didn't just move him, it defined him. From that day on, Steve Perry didn't want to be anything else. He had to sing. Steve's early years were filled with passion, but also sacrifice. His family struggled financially. His mother worked multiple jobs to support them. Perry would often walk to school, dreaming of one day stepping onto a stage. He became obsessed with vocalists, Sam Cooke, Jackie Wilson, Marvin Gaye. He recorded his own voice on tape recorders, analyzing every breath, every nuance. He wasn't just mimicking, he was learning the architecture of soul. After high school in Lemoore, Perry worked odd jobs, turkey farms, construction, while chasing his musical dream. He joined early bands like Ice, Pieces, and later Alien Project, but back then he was mostly a drummer. He did try out for Captain Beyond when Rod Revens left, but they passed. Still, Perry kept going. He eventually formed Alien Project, and things were looking up until tragedy hit. A bandmate and close friend, Richard Michaels, died in a car accident. Perry was devastated. The band fell apart, and Perry returned to the family farm. He was 27, dreams on hold. During this dark period, Perry contemplated quitting music altogether. He became withdrawn. For months, he didn't sing a single note. But it was his mother, his biggest supporter, who urged him not to give up. "Music is your purpose, Steve," she told him. "You were born to sing." While Steve Perry was back on his family's farm, wrestling with grief and fading dreams, something was happening 210 miles north in San Francisco. Journey was a band on the verge. Formed in 1973 by former Santana and Frumi's Bandersnatch members, they were musically brilliant but commercially stagnant. Their first 3 albums, heavily influenced by jazz fusion and progressive rock, failed to break through. The musicianship was never in doubt, but they didn't have a sound. They didn't have a voice. Columbia Records was getting impatient. The band needed a frontman who could take them to the next level, someone who could sing and sell. Herbie Herbert, the band's sharp, no-nonsense manager, knew exactly what was missing. He didn't just want a singer, he wanted a star. Enter Fate. One of Herbie's connections passed along a demo tape. It came from a now-defunct band called Alien Project, featuring a singer with soaring tenor vocals that cut through like a knife dipped in honey. The song was called If You Need Me, Call Me. As soon as Herbie pressed play, he heard it. That voice, unmistakable, clear, powerful, soulful. It wasn't just rock, it had R&B in its blood, gospel in its lungs, heartache in every vowel. Herbie didn't hesitate. He reached out to Perry and invited him to Los Angeles to cut a few test tracks. For Steve, who had resigned himself to a life of dust and silence on the farm, it felt surreal. He packed his bags with a cautious hope. This might be the break he thought had passed him by. But Herbie played it smart. Journey already had a vocalist at the time, Robert Fleischman, and the chemistry with the rest of the band was strained. Herbie arranged for Perry to secretly attend rehearsals. One afternoon in Long Beach, with Fleischman absent, Perry was asked to sing with the group. They played, Perry opened his mouth, and that was it. Neil Schon would later admit, when he sang, the room changed. You just knew he was it. The chemistry was electric. Perry wasn't just a technical singer, he brought emotion to every note. Where the band had been cerebral, Perry brought soul. And suddenly, Journey wasn't a jazz rock outfit anymore. They were something new. On October 28th, 1977, Steve Perry made his official debut with Journey at a concert in San Francisco. The crowd didn't know what hit him, but behind the scenes it was a calculated risk. Herbie had warned Perry fans might resist. Perry looked different, sounded different, hell, even moved different. More Motown than metal. So they introduced him gradually, slipping his vocals into the studio mix, easing him into the spotlight, then letting the music speak for itself, and it did. That night, Journey didn't just gain a new singer, they found their identity, their missing piece, their voice. I've seen it happen. One moment you're another band in a long line of hopefuls, then you find that guy and everything locks into place. Perry didn't join Journey, he transformed it. Not everyone loved him at first. Journey fans were used to a rawer, progressive rock vibe, complex time signatures, long instrumental breaks, jazzy explorations. Perry's pop tenor changed that overnight. Some fans called it a sellout, others thought it was too soft, too mainstream. The band had built its early reputation on musicianship, especially guitarist Neil Schon's technical mastery, and now here came this guy singing about love with a voice that could make the clouds cry. Even within the band some members weren't sold. The tension wasn't about talent. Everyone knew Perry had it. It was about identity. Was Journey still a rock band, or were they becoming something else? But Journey's fourth album, Infinity Perry's debut, put the argument to rest. Produced by Roy Thomas Baker of Queen fame, the album introduced tighter hooks, powerful choruses, and more radio-ready structures. Wheel in the Sky cracked the Billboard Hot 100. The shift wasn't just commercial, it was intentional. The record label was thrilled. Fans started to soften, and concert crowds, they couldn't resist him. Perry didn't just sing, he connected. He'd close his eyes, clutch the mic stand, and bleed emotion, that vulnerability. It wasn't common in arena rock. And it worked. From there it was Rocket Fuel, Evolution, 1979. First top 20 hit with Lovin', Touchin', Squeezin', which Perry partly wrote after being inspired by Sam Cooke's phrasing. Departure, 1980, Any Way You Want It, becomes a stadium anthem, driven by that classic Perry-Kane-Sean synergy. Captured, 1981, their first live album, sealing their status as one of the greatest touring acts of the era. Perry didn't just push Journey into the mainstream, he redefined what mainstream could sound like. He brought soul to rock, emotion to structure, and while some early fans drifted away, millions more came aboard. He also pushed the band's songwriting forward. He was deeply involved in vocal arrangements, harmonies, and even lyrical choices, and with his insistence on emotional clarity, Journey became more than a rock band. They became the soundtrack to people's lives of heartbreak, hope, and healing. Some voices sing, some roar. Perry did both, and even I had to admit the man could deliver a chorus like a damn freight train made of velvet. Escape dropped on July 17, 1981, and it wasn't just an album, it was a declaration. Journey had officially arrived at the summit, and Escape was their flag in the ground. It was the band's 7th studio album, and their most iconic. With Perry at the helm, the group leaned hard into an emotionally driven sound that blended arena rock with pop precision and heart-wrenching balladry. The lineup was now solidified. Steve Perry, Neil Schon, Jonathan Cain, who had just joined after leaving the Babies, Ross Valerie, and Steve Smith. Cain and Perry quickly developed a songwriting chemistry that felt effortless. Perry would hum a melody, Cain would reach for the piano, and magic would spill out. The result? An album that sold over 12 million copies and changed the landscape of 1980s rock. Don't Stop Believin', a song that defied traditional structure and became the anthem of resilience. That slow build intro, it broke all the rules and still landed in pop culture immortality. Who's Crying Now? A soulful, vulnerable single that showcased Perry's gift for subtle phrasing and emotional control. Still They Ride, a haunting, cinematic ballad that felt like a lonely road trip through the heart of America. Open Arms, the power ballad to end all power ballads. The vulnerability in Perry's voice turned what could have been soft rock sap into one of the most emotionally resonant love songs ever written. The album topped the Billboard 200 and stayed there for weeks. Radio stations played Journey on constant rotation. MTV, still in its infancy, gave the band national visibility. Concerts sold out in minutes. They weren't just rock stars, they were household names. And with Frontiers in 1983, they didn't slow down. That album was nearly as big, producing 4 more top 40 hits: Separate Ways, Worlds Apart, Faithfully, Send Her My Love, After the Fall. Though many fans believe Faithfully was penned by Perry himself, it was Jonathan Cain who wrote the lyrics in under a half hour, claiming the melody came to him in a dream. Still, it was Perry who gave it life, delivering the verses like a man spilling his soul onto the stage. Journey was now headlining stadium tours across the USA, Europe, and Asia. Night after night, they played for tens of thousands. Perry's voice became the beating heart of their live shows. His ability to go from a gentle whisper to a scream of heartbreak captivated millions. But with superstardom came pressure, endless touring, expectations to outdo each album, the growing tension of maintaining success. And behind the scenes, Steve Perry, despite the fame, was starting to feel the weight of it all. He was a perfectionist. Every missed note haunted him. Every show was a battle between the soaring frontman the world expected and the man inside who was starting to burn out. Still, in this golden era, Perry and Journey crafted music that would stand the test of time. Their songs became prom themes, breakup anthems, wedding first dances. You couldn't turn on a radio or walk into a roller rink in the 80s without hearing that voice. You don't make albums like that by accident. You make them when you've got lightning in a bottle and you know the damn thing's already on fire. Escape wasn't just a hit, it was a phenomenon. And Steve? He was the flame at the center of it. In 1984, riding the high of Journey's global fame, Steve Perry stepped out on his own. He had always dreamed of making a solo album. Not to leave the band, but to express something more personal, something that didn't always fit inside Journey's framework. The result was Street Talk. It was a smash, selling over 2 million copies and giving Perry his own identity beyond Journey. The single Oh Sherry, written for his then girlfriend Sherry Swafford, rocketed to number 3 on the Billboard charts. Its music video became an MTV staple, and Perry, usually private, had let the world in on something intimate. Another standout was Foolish Heart, a slower, more vulnerable track that revealed the quieter, more reflective side of him. His voice, tender, unsure, aching, struck a chord with listeners who saw Perry not as a rock god, but as a human being wrestling with love and fear. But while the spotlight glowed, darkness loomed. That same year, Steve's mother, Mary, his biggest supporter, his spiritual anchor, was diagnosed with a rare neurological condition. Her decline was fast. Perry put everything on hold to be with her. No press, no concerts, no distractions, just mother and son. She passed away on December 4, 1985. It shattered him. On her deathbed, she made him promise to stay with Journey. Don't walk away, she told him. You were born to sing. So he tried. Journey's next album, Raised on Radio, 1986, was Perry's most personal contribution yet. He took over as producer, wanting full creative control. The album delivered 4 top 20 hits, including Be Good to Yourself, Suzanne, and I'll Be Alright Without You. But the process was rocky. Perry's perfectionism pushed him to fire longtime bandmates Ross, Valerie, and Steve Smith. Session musicians were brought in, creative tension rose. Journey no longer felt like a band, it felt like a pressure cooker. The music was still great, the sales were strong, but Perry was emotionally drained. In early 1987, at the height of the band's fame, Steve Perry did the unthinkable. He walked away. You can have all the hits in the world, but when your soul's running on empty, even the spotlight starts to feel cold. Perry chose silence, and in doing so, he left the world asking, where did he go? From 1988 to 1994, Steve Perry disappeared from the spotlight. One of the most recognizable voices in rock had simply gone quiet. No tours, no interviews, no new music, just silence. Rumors filled the void. Some said he had throat cancer. Others whispered about substance abuse or AIDS. None of it was true. The truth was simpler and more human. Perry later explained, "Something strange happened. My love for music just left me. I didn't even sing in the shower. And that fire that once burned in his chest, gone. Grief over his mother's death, fatigue from fame, creative burnout, and deep personal doubt had all taken their toll. He withdrew from the industry completely and began living the kind of life most rock stars couldn't imagine. Quiet, anonymous, ordinary. He bought a Harley and rode alone along the country roads of his youth. He reconnected with old friends, attended small-town events, visited the cemetery where his grandparents and mother rested. He'd sit for hours just listening to the breeze, to the silence, to himself. During this time he also learned he had a daughter, Shamila, from a relationship in his early 20s. Her mother had never told him, but now, as a teenager, Shamila wanted to meet her father. They reunited quietly, away from the press. Today she's married with children, and Perry, now a grandfather, keeps that part of his life fiercely private. He didn't chase headlines, he didn't write songs, he didn't perform. He simply lived, and in that stillness he began to find pieces of himself again. Not the rock star, but the man beneath it all. There's a kind of courage in stepping away, in facing yourself without a crowd to cheer or a band to carry you. Perry walked away from the noise and walked straight into his own truth. By 1994, after nearly 7 years away from the spotlight, Steve Perry shocked fans and the industry alike. On July 13, he released his second solo album, For the Love of Strange Medicine. The title said it all. This was a man dipping his toes back into a world he once walked away from. It wasn't a cash grab, it wasn't a label stunt, it was personal, and people listened. The album debuted at 15 on the Billboard 200. The lead single, You Better Wait, climbed to number 29 and proved Perry's voice hadn't lost a step. Critics praised the emotional maturity in his vocals. Fans welcomed him back with open arms. But Steve wasn't just revisiting the past, he was testing the future, seeing if that old spark could still catch fire. And then, something no one expected. He reunited with Journey. In 1996, the classic lineup came together to record Trial by Fire, their 10th studio album, and the first with Perry since Raised on Radio a decade earlier. The chemistry was still there. So was the magic. The single, When You Love a Woman, became a top 20 hit. The album went platinum. Journey, with Perry once again at the front, seemed poised for another global tour, but fate had other plans. While vacationing in Hawaii, Steve experienced severe pain in his hip. He was later diagnosed with a degenerative bone condition. Doctors told him he needed immediate surgery. Perry hesitated. He was afraid of going under the knife, afraid the surgery might affect his voice, afraid of coming back, only to be broken again. As weeks became months, the band grew restless. The momentum from Trial by Fire was fading. The label was waiting. Fans were waiting. Journey gave Perry an ultimatum: get the surgery or we move on. He couldn't bring himself to go through with it. And just like that, Steve Perry walked away again. This time, for good. The band hired a new singer. Tours resumed. Albums followed. But for many fans, it was never the same. Sometimes it's not the flame that dies, it's the wick. The body says stop, even when the soul's still screaming to sing. Steve chose peace over pressure, and I'll respect the hell out of that. In 2011, nearly 15 years after his last recording, Steve Perry saw something that changed his life again. A filmmaker friend, Patty Jenkins, who would later direct Wonder Woman, invited him to watch a rough cut of a documentary about cancer survivors. Among the many stories, one woman stood out to him immediately. Her name was Kelly Nash, a psychologist, strong, witty, and radiating life despite her battle with stage 4 breast cancer. Perry couldn't stop watching her scenes. He later said there was just something about her. Her eyes, her smile, it felt like a lightning bolt. He asked Patty if she could reach out to Kelly for him, but Patty warned him Kelly's cancer had returned. It was now in her bones and lungs. Her prognosis was not good. Steve hesitated. He'd already lost so much. He knew what it meant to fall in love with someone who might not be around long. But still, he reached out. They met for dinner. That dinner turned into 2 years. Steve called it the most meaningful relationship of his life. They didn't talk about fame, music, or the past. They talked about real life, mortality, memories, sunsets, hope. Kelly once told him, "This disease may take me, but it can never touch our love." And it didn't. They were inseparable until the end. She passed away in December 2012, and Perry once again was devastated. But Kelly had made him promise one thing before she left. Don't isolate, don't disappear again, and don't stop singing. It was a hard promise to keep, but Perry meant it. When love enters late, it hits harder. He didn't just lose a partner, he lost the one person who could bring him back to the world. And yet, in losing her, he found the strength to return. It took time, but 18 months after Kelly's passing, Steve Perry kept his word. In 2014, he made a surprise appearance at Anil's concert in St. Paul, Minnesota. Fans were stunned. He hadn't performed live in 19 years. But there he was, walking onto the stage unannounced, nervous, humble, grinning. And then he sang. His voice, aged yes, but unmistakably Steve Perry. The crowd erupted. Grown adults wept. It wasn't just a return, it was a rebirth. Motivated by that spark, Perry began writing again. Carefully, quietly. On October 5th, 2018, he released Traces, his first solo album in 24 years. It wasn't designed for charts or radio. It was a deeply personal album, a meditation on love, grief, healing, and memory. Songs like Noah Racine, We're Still Here, and most of all, carried the emotional fingerprints of someone who had lived. Critics praised the sincerity. Fans were just happy to hear that voice again. In 2021, he followed up with The Season, his first Christmas album, a soft, jazzy, reflective work filled with warmth. No big production, just Steve doing what he loved. Today, Perry lives simply. He's often spotted at baseball games, especially cheering for the San Francisco Giants. Fans who meet him say the same thing. He's kind, down to earth, and happy to take photos, even if you catch him mid-bite at a diner. He never remarried, he lives in a modest house, drives one car, keeps a low profile. But inside that quiet life, a voice and a legacy that continues to echo around the world. Some returned to the stage to chase fame. Steve Perry returned to honor a promise, and in doing so, he gave us something even more rare than a great voice. He gave us his heart. There are singers who fill stadiums, and then there are those who fill hearts. Steve Perry did both. He vanished, yes, but legends don't fade, they echo. And before I go, credit where credit's due. This story, this journey into the soul of Steve Perry was researched, written, and crafted by the brilliant mind of Chris Dallas, a man who writes with heart, grit, and truth. And while Chris's favorite band of all time is Led Zeppelin, and yet he loved my singing, his favorite singer was always Steve Perry. If you felt something tonight, then show some love. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment your favorite Steve Perry moment, and most of all, share this with someone who still believes in voices that matter. Because this isn't just storytelling, this is celebrity recreations, and it's like nothing else on the damn internet. Digital Robert Plant, out.